Welcome to our weekly New Gambia platform talk. So today is August 14, 2022. Today we're gonna be discussing about the misconceptions of justice system in the Gambia. We have our guest here, international human right lawyer, Gayso. Gayso would be talking about how some of the things that people have misconception on when it comes to justice system and some of the scenario of things that we go through in the Gambia and then give us an insight. So we will be listeners here and we'll be asking questions, and our followers also will be sending their feedbacks. So welcome on board, Gayso. Welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Sawani.
So I also have my partner here, co-host Sam Sise from Indiana, and they also from the Gambia. So welcome, guys. Okay, Mr. Mr. So, you don't want me to call you any specific title, but yeah, of course, anyway. But so you can go ahead. So pertaining to the Gambian law, when it comes to the misconceptions that people have, I know you've been asked, a lot of questions, with some of the issues that you've been covering. So if you can just give us, like an overview of some of the misconceptions, some of us has, because we don't read a lot.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe if you can help in telling me what the misconceptions are.
Yeah. So I
can help in.
Yeah. I will start and someone they being that they also is a journalist, I'm pretty sure he run into that question a lot in the Gambia. But one that I had so far is that Gambia people have been found guilty before they are even been found innocent. So in US here is different. I mean, here you are innocent until proven guilty. So I don't know if that's the same case in the Gambia or not.
I thank you, Mr. Sawane Sam, and of course our journalist friend. I mean, I just want to make it clear: the Gambia, like a lot of other countries that were colonized by the UK, as in the British, have what is called a common law legal system. And that, of course, I don't have to tell anybody listening, of course, the US too was a British colony, and you guys got your independence in 1776. Just that at that time, the Gambia was in a colony, and we didn't get ours as our independence until 1965. So it's important we understand the legal traditions are are similar, as in a lot of what we call Gambian criminal law. As I speak to you, this particular minute is a lot of it, a bulk of it is, based on the laws as our colonialists handed over to us. The only difference on the ground outside of the received law, we also have customary law. Mandinka customary law, Jola customary law, Wolof customary law. But when it comes to criminal justice, when it comes to law, if you look through our criminal law statutes, where they're dealing with substantive law, procedural law, and you also look into American law, you see a lot of similarities. So the tradition is, both countries coming from the same parent, here British. So in essence, what I'm saying is, if you look at our criminal justice laws, you look at the U.S. criminal justice laws, of course, you would notice differences here and there, but some are similar, very, very similar in the sense these are things based on what we got from our colonial masters. Then also have to say the U.S. Gambian law the same. Our needs are different, our people are different. So which was why in the Gambia independence we had to adapt, cater for our people. And of course, They did the same in the US. But let me get to your question. This is a fundamental principle of justice, presumption of innocence. If you look at the Universal Declaration, of Human Rights, adopted, 1948 after the Second World War, the International Covenant Civil Political Rights adopted in the 60s, and we were lucky to have that document ratified going back to the 70s. Like starting with international law, all these very, very important legal instruments make it clear that a very important fundamental of any criminal justice system is the rule on presumption of innocence. Everybody is presumed innocent until they're proven guilty. Like, this is something that has always been part of our system. And in the Gambia, this principle is something you find in Section 24 of our Constitution. So, like, it's not only provided for in our ordinary laws. Our Constitution is our most important document. You see, when I talk about the Constitution, you see me raising my hand. I do that very unconsciously. Like they say it well of what they as in Mantau. I talk about it and I raise my hand up, and unconsciously I'm trying to say this is definitely the most important document in this country. It's fundamental. And if you look at Section 24, it makes it clear as a fundamental principle of our justice system that everybody is presumed innocent until the contrary is proved. So this is not just something you find in our ordinary laws. It's something you find in Gambia's most important document, which is our constitution. And interestingly, I think it's also important for me to emphasize, if you look at Section 24, you find that in Chapter 4 of our Constitution. Chapter 4 of our Constitution provides for fundamental human rights. And our Constitution says Chapter 4 is entrenched. So for anybody to take away that part of our Constitution that says you are presumed innocent until you're proven guilty, that person would have to have a referendum. Remember the draft Constitution, the process it went through, going to the National Assembly, first reading, second reading, getting the required number of votes, after which Gambians would have to have a referendum to decide on whether to change or not to change. So this is so fundamental. We have it entrenched, meaning the current government cannot change that part. I'm recovering from a cold, so you'll have to forgive me. The current government, the current government cannot change that part. The previous government could not have changed that part if we do not have a referendum to change it. So it's not just there, it is fundamentally there. In the sense, we have our constitution telling us you need to change this. There is a long, very laborious, lengthy process to go through. Just like I said, the constitution, draft constitution went through. So it's really, really fundamental. So in a sense, it is wrong. I wouldn't say 100% wrong. Maybe 1,000% wrong for anyone to talk about presumption of guilt before innocence. That's not what is in our constitution. That is not what is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That is not what is in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, otherwise called the Banjul Charter. That is not what is on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. That is not what you have in the Inter-American Convention for the Americas. That's also not what you have in the European system. I am not aware of any constitution or any treaty anywhere in the world that's about guilt before you prove innocent. It's innocence before you prove guilty. So I'm surprised we're even talking about that. That is nothing special about that. That is so basic. That is so basic, we don't have to debate that. So basic, it is shocking we even think we should start talking about presumption of what guilt before innocence. That's not what our law says. And like I said, I'm not aware of any other constitution anywhere around the world that provides for criminal justice in this kind of way.
Okay. So
Welcome.
you know, Alice is here. Is our co-panel.
Yeah, I just came late because I was trying to unzip something and it took time. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. So quickly, just Gay, I just wanted to say that the reason why people are thinking like that is because we have seen people who have been in jail before their cases were decided, and some of them are not bailable. I will tell you a case that was over. That's not in the court now, which is the NIA 11 or 9 or something like that. Those people were locked up for so long before they even get to be proven guilty. So that those kind of issues, those kind of incidents are the ones that people started to think, because no explanation was given. I mean, like you put somebody in jail, they haven't even been seen by the judge and been sentenced
Yeah.
or whatever, and people will have to doubt, hey, if somebody come and accuse me for anything before I even prove myself, I will be serving time. So what is the issue
Okay.
now, Mr. So?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sawane. He never accepts this man. Okay. But when you climb it, no need. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
will
The thing
accept if
is,
you call me Konke.
okay, no problem. Yes. Um. I will. You just raise, the issue of bail. Bail isn't meant to punish. In fact, if you pick up our criminal procedure code, that's how, that tells you the procedure to follow when somebody is accused of committing a crime. The code makes it clear. Even if you decide to give bail, the conditions must not be excessive. So you use bail to secure somebody's attendance, like when someone comes to the Gambia on holidays, he's caught driving without a license. Uh, you have him arrested. You believe if you release him on bail, he might go to the US, like abscond, that kind of thing. So these are some of the things considered by our court. But you cannot say I'm going to give Mr. Sawan a bail because I want to punish him. He's a semester driving a nice car, oppressing everybody. I need to make him pay. That's not what bail is about, because the issue is he is still innocent. It's for the state to prove him guilty. So you don't use bail to punish. You use bail to secure someone's attendance. And if you look at the bail bonds that are signed when somebody, is all about saying, I guarantee that is somebody who is coming in as your sortie, that whenever Mr. Sawane is needed at Banjul Magistrates Court, whenever Mr. Sawane is needed at Bassa Magistrates Court, I'll make sure he is there. So it's just about something to make sure you guarantee attendance. So it's about making him suffer. Because at that stage, our law has made it clear, even though you caught him and you think he was driving without a license or he was driving without his silver fasting, or he was driving, he's still innocent. It's for you to prove his guilt. So I think it's important we make that clear. Bail is not about making anybody suffer, but it's about securing somebody's attendance when that person is needed in court, which is why, you know, in most cases, when somebody is released on bail in the sum of $3 million, oh, sorry, $3 million, unless the presiding officer makes it a condition, the 3 million is not deposited into the court. It's a bond. If Mr. Sawane doesn't come, I promise the government I'll pay this. So I hope that is made clear. In the sense,
It's
bail is not meant to
guarantee.
punish, but to secure somebody's attendance. So if we have, succeeded in making that clear, I wanted to go on to state. I said earlier on common law tradition, the US, the Gambia, the UK, a lot of similarities. But some of us have made some adaptations. We decide to change our law to adapt to our local circumstances. What did we do? In the Gambia, in fact, before I even start talking about bail, I want to start talking about Section 19 of our of our Constitution. You will struggle to find any country around the world that has maybe something better, something similar. Section 19 of our Constitution, the Constitution is available online for anyone interested to pick up, says if you are arrested, you must be told in a language you understand the reason or reasons for your arrest. Whether that is complied with or not, we can talk about that some more day, but that is what is in our highest document. It says you must be told, not just told, in a language you understand, meaning if the language you understand is a Mandinka dialect from Swarekunda in Badibu, they have to get
Why you
you
picking my village?
an interpreter.
And you have to get somebody who can speak the language.
Yeah. So I'll get to bail later. In a language you understand, you have to be told the reason or reasons for your arrest. That's in Section 19. Not just that, the law says they must tell you within 3 hours. So it's not just about keeping you there for 2 days, after which they will come back. In 3 hours, they have to tell you why they are arresting you, and they must do so in a language you understand. And Section 19 goes on to say specifically, whoever is arresting you must tell you that you have a right to consult a lawyer. So these are really, really high standards. I'm sure, going back to your question, if all these were complied with, we really wouldn't be having this issue. But now, let's get to bail. If you look at Section 19, which talks about the right to personal liberty, it says, told the reason for your arrest in a language you understand within 3 hours, and if they either have to charge you or take you to court within 72 hours. That is where you hear Gambians always talk about 72 hours, 72 hours. But that's where Section 19 stops. Section 19 does not say if you are charged with this offense, that offense, no bail. And we're talking about the most important document in this country. But outside of the Constitution, we have other laws. Before 2002, our Criminal Procedure Code provided that if you are charged with murder, you cannot be released on bail. In 2002, that law was changed to add life imprisonment, meaning from saying if you're charged with an offense that is punishable with death, no bail, to say now, under Gambian law, if you're charged with an offense punishable with death or life imprisonment, you cannot get bail. So we added life imprisonment to that. Murder is punishable with death. Treason is punishable with death. If you look at the Gambia Armed Forces Act, there are some offenses there that are punishable with death. And moving on, we know rape under certain circumstances is punishable with life imprisonment. So which means, going by the changes made to our Criminal Procedure Code in 2002, now, under Gambian law, if the offense you're charged with is punishable with death or life imprisonment, the police cannot give you bail, and our courts too cannot give you bail. This is this very big question. If the Constitution does not limit bail, can we have a subsidiary law limit? This is a discussion I've had with so many of my lawyer friends, and at some point we talked about challenging it, but nobody has done that. If we feel that law saying if you're charged with death, life imprisonment, no bail for you, is against Section 19 of the Constitution, the proper thing to do is go to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to declare that law unconstitutional. That hasn't happened yet. So it means, as we speak, up to the time that law is set aside, if you're charged with any offense in this country that is punishable with death or life imprisonment, you can talk about using, applying for bail.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, in fact, let me take us back a bit to what used to happen under the previous government. That's why a lot of Gambians were very scared. Anytime there was a rumor of a coup, people will disappear. Because what they used to do then is have you charged with concealment of treason, which is punishable with life imprisonment. And the minute you are charged with concealment of treason, you know very well you can't talk about being released on bail. If you look at through the records, our history, Mariam Denton, former speaker, was charged with that, Tamsit Jasi, a lot of others. So the issue then was, if that was used to weaponize whatever, you Americans like using that a lot, the FBI is weaponized. So if that is used to weaponize the system, how about we find a way of dealing with it? And we decided, I was, along with two other lawyers, were recruited to review and redraft our criminal justice laws. We finished our assignment in 2019. Until now, that law is not yet passed. What do we have in that law? We removed that part that said life imprisonment or death, no bail. So we now leave it to the discretion of the court, meaning even if someone is charged with murder, if the court presiding over the case believes that such a guy deserves bail, maybe because of ill health, because of certain considerations, the guy is not going to leave to go to New York, the court can consider giving that person bail. So if you look at the draft we have before the National Assembly, the law has drastically changed. But until that law is adopted by the National Assembly and, assented to by the president, what we have is our current law. And our current law says if the charge is punishable with death or life imprisonment, a court presiding over your case cannot give you bail. I hope I am clear. That is what is in the law. But is that law constitutional? It's not for me to say. It's something we should have challenged many years ago. And it's a discussion I've had with some of my colleagues, and some of them are really thinking of taking it up. But until that law is set aside, we still have to apply it as it is. It's about rule of law. So the law says this, so we need to comply. If we don't like it, let's challenge it. And we have not yet done that. So if we charge with any offense that is punishable with death or life imprisonment, Gambian law says no bail. In the US, you hear people charged with offenses that are really very serious, and sometimes they are released on how many $1 million bails to make sure they're in court. But our law is not like that. It says if it is death or life imprisonment, no bail for you. And that change, like I said, happened in 2002.
Okay. All right. So before my colleagues come in, I just want to just point out one thing here. And the explanation is great. I mean, it's clear. Nobody can say that they don't understand this. Okay? Yeah, it's very clear. So the law is there, and it says that if these certain things are not bailable, if it is either death or life imprisonment. Now,
if the punishment is death or life imprisonment,
yes, those ones are not bailable if they are charged. First, I mean, even the charges is first charge, you're still gonna go through that process, which to me is unfair. Okay, because somebody can accuse anybody.
What is unfair?
Somebody can be charged with something which he or she hasn't done. That's what I'm trying to say. So being charged doesn't mean that you're guilty. Is that a correct statement?
I agree. Which is why, in fact, I can give you lots of examples, and I have those judgments. Malawi had a similar law. The lawyers went to court, they challenged it, and the courts held that law was unconstitutional. Uganda had a similar law, they challenged it, and the courts held that was unconstitutional. Zimbabwe too. So I very much agree with what you're saying. Because what about if the allegations are false? Does it mean just because Mr. Sawane has filed a particular case against me, even before the merits of the case are heard, my right to go to court to apply for bail is taken away from me automatically. That's really a very, very big issue,
Yeah.
which is why in other countries, they went ahead to challenge that law, to say that law saying no bail in certain cases, making that absolute was wrong. And in those countries, they won. Like I said, in this country, people have talked about that for years, but nobody has taken that up. But the law is the law until it is changed.
Right. So that brings me to the second point. The second point is you are a international human rights lawyer, and your goal is to see that there is decency in our law and people's rights are protected across the globe.
Yeah.
So you have colleagues like that, many, many colleagues. So my question is, why isn't that, you guys haven't taken this, hold the bull by the horn and risk and then fight, against this? Because to even myself, who I'm not a lawyer, but I work in a law office for a good 8 years. At least I have some understanding about the legal system here in the US. But I could tell, this is something that the Gambian lawyers, especially people working with you, should take it to your own hands and then do something about it, because it is definitely common sense. This is common sense judgment. It's definitely not fair because it will hurt somebody more than the other. So I don't know.
I appreciate where you're coming from.
Why Gambians are waiting, and why Gambian lawyers are waiting.
Believe me, just last week, I had a similar discussion with a lawyer. And of course, we also have talked about the possibility. And this is not a discussion that just started recently. I remember with the same lawyer, we talked about this like more than 10, 15 years ago. But it's always about, who is going to bail the card and stuff like that. Yeah. So I very much understand where you're coming from. And I understand the frustration from most Gambians. And I honestly believe it is our responsibility. Like, even if I don't work for my organization, as Gayso, a Gambian lawyer, our responsibility to make sure we take these matters up. That was what we did in the Yankuba Ture case. When we felt the government needed help, we had to step in to file an amicus as a friend of the court, and we actually used that to make our case very clear. I think this is something we should have done a long time ago, and we have had this discussion, but until now, nothing much has happened. So I would say, I think bearing in mind, the things that are happening right now, it's important we really try to do something as soon as possible. Maybe as soon as Tuesday. Tomorrow is a public holiday. I agree with you. I'm being honest. That is no excuse.
Yeah.
Because like I told you,
I will hold you. I will hold your word on that. So I'll
no.
explain
You
you.
don't have to hold my word, because at the end of the day, the organization I lead is a Gambian organization. We cover the whole of the continent, so it depends on priorities. But as a Gambian, I should owe it. But like I said, they did it in Zimbabwe, challenging a similar law. They did it in Malawi, and they did it in Uganda. And I have copies of all those judgments, because I always like finding out what is happening in other countries that have a system similar to ours. So we need to. I agree with you, but don't just push me. I know you have other lawyer friends. It is our responsibility.
Yes, definitely.
I agree with you, because at the end of the day, if you're saying this guy is presumed, let's try to make the connection, because the discussion today is about presumption of innocence until proven guilty. If you're saying this guy is innocent, why do you have to proceed with the assumption this guy is guilty? Because for you to say no bail, that tells a lot. But we have to understand one thing. The Gambian reality is different. We have, for the past decades, been very, very suspicious of our leaders. Somebody commits rape, somebody commits manslaughter, somebody commits murder. Our law says, unless the circumstances are really exceptional, you have to release that guy on bail. Go on radio. What would Gambians say? I ain't no more far. I went to Bundung, I saw him. Maybe he paid a judge. Maybe he paid a magistrate. Maybe he paid a police officer. We are really very, very difficult people. And in most cases, we're very, very suspicious. Somebody commits an offense, you see him walking alongside a Kunda market. The next day, the first assumption wouldn't be, oh, maybe this guy deserves bail because that is what the law says. Our first assumption is always, I could jole, therefore, dukunit, we need to work on that. I mean, I don't know, when I say we, it's not just about us. You don't blame people for being suspicious.
Yeah,
The leadership needs to work on that.
I think we have that problem. This
Yeah.
traditional thinking and the law. I think. I mean, that's the purpose of this platform too, to enlighten many people, because we have these two problems. You know, one is more traditional, and the other one is law, and they are two different sections. And the Gambian should first know that. You know, we have
So
problems
can you
with
imagine?
differentiating.
Yeah. Can you imagine somebody killing? Because just because you kill doesn't mean you committed murder. It's only murder if we're talking about the killing being intentional. Somebody kills, maybe behaves in a very negligent manner, as in Mandinka they say ama hakilotu in Wolof Sagan, very in it. The next
Yeah,
day
yeah.
they go to Serakunda, they see you. He said, hey, Kindukuna guy, he wrote kill my relative, but because he's rich, there is
Yeah,
a lot.
because we cannot, yeah, how to call it? We cannot imagine that, you know,
Yeah. So you then
because
don't have to
we
blame the
believe when you kill, you are guilty, you know, because somebody saw you. But when we come to law, the judge will tell you again, I need this proof and this proof according to my books, you know, and that is the law. So, and if the police cannot, for example, then it's for the law side, not guilty because you have no proof. But
But do
going
you
outside the
respond
law, people can
before a
say,
case goes
yeah,
to court?
yeah, yeah, it was gay, you know. So these
Yeah.
are the two things Gambians should understand, because the law can be very petty sometimes, you know. You know that
But
yourself.
do we do that? Sometimes, even before the guy is taken to court, we already have made up our minds as to whether he's guilty or not guilty. But I don't blame people, to be honest, because at the end of the day, the primary responsibility is the government. It is for the government to build our confidence in the system. Because if people had 100% confidence in the system, then all these suspicions wouldn't arise. So it's not
Yeah,
for Mr. Nger or Modusawane or Mr. So to build that
right.
confidence. It is for government to make it clear our judiciary is independent. Making it clear is not just about going on TV. It's about seeing is believing. Yeah, that's not. I don't blame people for thinking that way. Because
Yeah,
at the end
no,
of the day,
no, because I mean, just look at when you look at Gambia, for example, how many people are beaten almost to death because they say he's a thief. But
yeah,
whether it's true or not, or somebody saw him stealing or not, before he can explain, he's already, you know, beaten to death sometimes because we don't have. So when they come to police, the police start to look what the law said with somebody who was suspected being, I mean, a thief, and when they cannot, you'll see from the whole crowd, nobody can tell you, I saw him doing it. So then the
yeah,
police, the law will tell you, okay, then he can go
yeah,
home. So then people cannot understand at that moment the situation that a law, there is something written, and we have to go according to, even the judge has to go according to
yeah.
what is written and what the constitution says. So, yeah, it's sometimes difficult, but you are here for that.
Yeah. I think our problem, if you look at our laws, there are very countries that have provisions similar to, and of course, even if you look at our Women's Act, our Sexual Violence Act, laws are not perfect, but they're a lot better, than, maybe even countries that are, our problem in most cases, of course, there were a lot of laws passed previously that are bad, that we should have changed. But what I'm saying is, if you look at what is happening here, in most cases, it's not about the law, it's about us. I always would quote Baba Ali, as in, he would say, the Imam, Jiko inyo wara wecheko. Dajiko also falling.
Also,
It doesn't matter how good your laws are. It doesn't matter how progressive your laws are. If at the end of the day, people have no regard for such laws. You're like wasting your time. So we're very good at enacting laws like Domestic Violence Act, the Women's Act, the Sexual Offences Act, Anti-Terrorism Act, a host of others. But the laws have been here for like more than a decade. Do we make good use of them?
That's
Do
the
we apply
question.
the law as it should be? That's our problem. So it's good at least you guys have this kind of platform. But what I have noticed, something happens, a lot of us rely on third-party information. Maybe you see in Modo Sawane's wall that Mr. So is a crook, even though you never knew Mr. So. Mr. Sawane might have said it because he knew Mr. So going back to 86. But do your independent research. Instead of doing that, you use that as credible information. You wouldn't even know maybe if Mr. Sawane is saying that because it has a beef with Mr. So. We don't do that. A lot of us rely on
Yeah,
third-party
yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah.
That doesn't help us.
And the danger
And the ones
today, you
who
have a lot of false information going always around. I think we should always be busy looking whether this can be true or not, than even the
there is
information
nothing you
itself,
cannot get
because
on
there's a
Google
lot of
now.
fake information always.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I have a
So,
question.
Mr.
So,
Sawane, going back to your question. Sorry, yeah.
yeah,
So,
go ahead.
law changed 2002 to say if the offense is charged with carries life imprisonment as a penalty, the death penalty, no bail for you. But the big question mark is, even though that law was enacted by the National Assembly, is that law constitutional? We should give our courts the opportunity to rule on that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sam, you can comment.
Yes, okay. After Sam,
Okay,
then
go
I will
ahead.
come.
No,
I
go
also
ahead.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much, Mr. So, for joining us. The question I have, it has to do with citizens' understanding of legal system, or our understanding with regards to cases that are ongoing. In the judicial system, I made to understand that most of us are not, enlightened with regards to the issues or with regards to the do's and the don'ts in courtrooms and what's supposed to be done when a matter is ongoing. In the court. So, as legal practitioner, what advice do you have for Gambian people, or per se for the government, regards to enlighten citizens about court proceedings, what they're supposed to do in courtrooms, and what they are not supposed to do when a matter is ongoing in court? Thank you.
For lawyers, we have this rule they call, sub judice. So some would say
Yeah.
sub judice, SUB, judice, So if a matter is pending, like our rules of professional ethics, our rules say you cannot comment on the substance of that matter, which was why even before we went on live, I made it clear if this is about cases that are pending, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be able to address that. It's really not right, because at the end of the day, go based on the topic for today, this guy is innocent.
Exactly.
It is for the state to prove his guilt. So it is really not right for you to go to court and say this is innocent, not innocent. That's why we have judges. For those of us who want to philosophize about this, we have what they call the social contract. When somebody commits a crime, you wouldn't, Mr. Samade, Mr. Cisse, and of course, Alassane wouldn't walk from wherever they are to say, we have to get this person arrested, and I am going to arrest him myself. Legally, you can, but that power, all of us have to arrest. We have delegated to the police. That power, all of us have to prosecute. We've delegated to our courts. So if we've done all that, we really have to learn to give our courts the opportunity to pronounce on issues that are pending before them. But of course, when I talk about giving us the opportunity, the courts too should do everything possible to make sure we continue to trust them. Because we are human. If we see something that frustrates us, we'll kick against it. It's their responsibility to make sure they don't let us lose confidence in their ability to dispense justice. That's something we have at the back of our mind. We should have at the back of our minds. But we also have to remember to be fair, to also be very guarded in our comments. I don't think it makes sense for a case that is pending for some of us to go on our Facebook to say XYZ is already innocent, XYZ is already guilty. it's not your job to declare innocence or guilt. It's the job of
Exactly.
our magistrates judges. Who pays those people? You pay
Mm-hmm.
them, I pay them, they pay them from here. So what I'm saying in essence is we really have to learn to listen to each other. And we really need to
Exactly.
know the whole facts before we take a stand. And then even if we take a stand, we have to be guarded in our comments. Don't come up with comments that really give the impression that this platform has taken a view on whether this guy is guilty or not guilty, or this platform has taken on how this case. It's not your responsibility. We have a judge. We have prosecutors who are professionals. Give them the opportunity to look into the issues. So I would say it's important we're very, very guarded in what we say when a case is pending
No.
before our law. But I'm not trying to say the judges, the magistrates should be untouchable. They also
Mm-hmm.
must do everything possible to make sure that confidence we have in them is not lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And in fact, sometimes it is very, very surprising to learn this. Most of the time, I work as journalists. You will see most of the journalists, when a case is ongoing, they will give their minds, seek people's opinion about that case. I ask myself, is this legally correct? Because I don't think it makes sense when a matter, is ongoing. You're seeking people's
Mhm.
opinion when they're not even legal practitioners, ordinary citizens. What do they have to say about that? Sometimes it doesn't make sense. But thank you
It's wrong.
for
You're
clarifying
not a
that
judge
part.
or magistrate. Yeah, you're not a
Exactly,
judge or
yeah.
magistrate. You are a
So
journalist.
in
You
other
have to
words,
present the facts.
in other words, you are saying that they become they kind of biased. Technically, they are biased towards the case and giving their own opinion, right?
Yeah, they seek citizens' opinion, whom they are not legal practitioners. So whatever they have to say would be just opinionated. It's not like they are giving their expert knowledge, but opinions, which is not very right as journalists to do certain things. You know, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I think
I think.
I understand your point because
Exactly.
sometimes we take. I used to say it here on the platform. Sometimes we judge things with emotions, and that can
Exactly.
sometimes
I think
lead
the
to a
issue is
mistake. The
a
fact
lot
that
of
we
the
have the
content
law.
online is. Yeah.
Yeah. You wanted to say
No, I'm
something?
saying I think the problem is sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now I thought
Sorry,
you wanted to come in.
No, I just wanted to say I think the problem is, I mean, it's not
Ah,
just a Gambian problem, all over the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
If
yeah,
we
yeah,
go,
yeah.
it's all about, getting hits. Everything is monetized now. As
That,
in,
that
you would
that's
come up
it.
with a
That's it.
story that you think million
And
people would watch
sometimes we
and the
even
story never happened.
sometimes we even try to politicize certain cases. You understand?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And the law and politics they have nothing to do with each other. And these are things I think the people should know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very funny because when I talk to the old people those days, I mean, they were not that informed because most of them didn't go to school. But they used to say a court is very funny. It can always turn the truth to lie and lie to truth. And they are old
Hmm.
people. That means they knew that the law is like that before. So I cannot imagine today with our all information that young people cannot differentiate that and taking that sometimes very emotional and things like that. And I don't know. Or should we do more to inform the people about court cases and law and so more?
My worry is, we are so very entrenched, you know. I mean, like everybody's like digging in. We believe, oh yeah, I belong to this, religion. I belong to this region. I belong to this party.
Yeah, yeah,
So
these are the
Mr. Kerr
problems,
has nothing
man.
good to tell me. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's a global problem now.
No, no, no.
We
But
dig in.
you understand when Sawane yet now, for example, did something illegal, I know it, but for Gambian style, I'll try to cover up. I'll not say that Sawane did it because why? Because I know Mr. Sawane. You understand?
Yeah.
And that has
Nobody
nothing to
goes to
do with the
another.
law. The law don't know Mr. Sawane. The law is going to look at what is being done. So I think we Gambians should try to adopt to these cases or more judiciaries things. But I think it's not the fault of Gambians, as we say. I think you are the only judicial person, for example, we can even have on this platform, so that people can be informed somehow. I don't think that is being practiced in the Gambia itself like that, to inform the people.
Okay.
No, I've known Mr. Sawane going back to 1984, so.
Yeah, that's why you're doing the job. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. So Sam,
But
you have
you,
Yeah.
to say?
you guys,
Yeah.
I'll come in. Yeah, definitely, Mr. Saul. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it very much. And Alice and Day, thank you for your questions as well. Well said, and well answered by Mr. Saul. So thank you. My question is, before I say my question, I would actually like to say, I believe in setting examples and setting good examples for people. You quoted section 19 of the Constitution, and you're correct. I did read that some time ago. When someone is arrested, they have to be told in the language that they understand what crime or why they were arrested, and also within the 72-hour period that they need to be charged. So my question is, this is not being practiced in Gambia. How can we make the law enforcers practice this? That's one. The other part that I always like to, like I said, I like to set examples. I'd like to see in Gambia where law enforcement officers fail to practice these and illegally arrest someone and take them to prison or jail, and then ended up in court, and then the court find them not guilty. When that happened, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see lawyers jumping, or not necessarily lawyers, but the lawyer or the attorney representing that individual turn around and sue the state. I want them to turn around and sue the state, number one, for arresting someone illegally and not telling them their charge until past the 72 hours, and all of those stuff, so that it can be an example for everyone in the state. I think sometimes, we need a wake-up call. A wake-up call. The state needs a wake-up call. Someone that's going to sue the state and win that case, to set the example for the state, to let them know, hey, you guys need to enforce this with the law enforcement officers. When you arrest someone, you need to follow this protocol. If you don't have a case, you don't have a case. If you cannot follow this protocol, you better release that person and not keep them in prison or in jail for past the 72 hours without a charge. So what is your advice on that? How can we make our law enforcement to follow these procedures and these normal protocols?
yeah, thank you, Mr. Sam, Mr. Stacey. How? I would say the first would be a program like this, as in making it clear to people that this is your right, and if your rights are violated, you have a remedy. Wherever there is a wrong, there has to be a remedy. The wrong has to be fixed. And of course, we're talking about people working in the name of the state. So if they violate your rights in the name of the state have to do everything possible. The state has to do everything possible to make sure that is fixed. In fact, if you look at section 19, I'm sure you have a copy of the Constitution. Subsection 6, this is what it says. It is very, very, very specific. It says, any person, and I'm reading straight from section 19.6 of our Constitution, any person who is unlawfully arrested or detained by any other person shall be entitled to compensation. This is not maybe, it says shall be entitled to compensation from that other person or from any other person or authority on whose behalf that other person is acting. So the same law that says to be arrested, this has to be followed, goes on to say, if all that we've prescribed above isn't followed, then your rights are violated. And the same saying, you have a right to be compensated. But like I said, this is a law that was, our 1997 Constitution, adopted in 1997. How many years now? More than, 20, 25 years? So A program like this helps because it will open up our eyes. And those who are wrong to need to start doing something about it. If you feel you were wrongly arrested, you were wrongly detained, you were tortured, God will not come from the heavens to tell you what to do. You need to do something about it. And the Constitution already makes it clear you can sue for compensation. Start taking up the challenge. You're unlawfully arrested, you're unlawfully detained, go to court. That's why our courts are here. Going to court shouldn't be just about land cases. It should also be about these kind of violations. So at the end of the day, if we continue having these programs, we also continue to take the government into account by actually suing them or pursuing other avenues. As in, if it is a particular police officer, making sure even if you do not go to court, you go to the National Human Rights Commission, which has that kind of mandate. Make sure you report the police officer to the superiors. At the end of the day, I think that really, really can help in, pushing for a change. But that's not how things work in the Gambia. No matter how bad you were treated, you go home, they tell you, atu alabulu, and before you know it, you move on to the next level. We're not going to go anywhere behaving that way. So it's about accountability, it's about responsibility. If you are wronged, our laws make it clear you have a right to a remedy. Whatever the remedy is for you to decide. Whether you want an apology, or whether you want an investigation for the officer to be dismissed, or whether you want compensation, that is your right, and nobody can take that right away from you. So we have to go beyond the Maslaha syndrome, particularly if we really want to make sure we put a stop to some of the things we're talking about.
Absolutely. So just one more thing here. I
The
totally
law
agree.
is very clear as to what we should do. So we just need to apply the law.
So totally agree. Definitely, Gambia needs. I've said this in the past too. Gambia needs really public awareness programs on television, especially when it comes to the law. There's a lot of people that don't know our laws, and Gambians tend to take things for granted, and we always run with one side story without realizing there's always at least two sides to every story. The first story that comes out is what hits the social media, and Gambians run with that. Whether it's right or wrong, they don't do any.
That is very true.
Your program, if you check, you have just about 10 people watching. But if it was about you interviewing what is it called? A politician, controversial in court, now you would be hitting hundreds or thousands.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is that sometimes for many people, such topics, for example, is too heavy for them. So they always try to look the light one, because it's too strong. Then they'll look like rather somebody quarreling, insulting there, and doing nonsense. Because then we don't need to engage our brains too much, which is very beneficial to the people, so that we will not be in the conditions and problems we are, and cannot differentiate, for example, the law and our traditional beliefs and things like that, where the problem comes. Many people watch it always after also, and then some used to call it the university because they know what they're gaining from. But the people we really want to help, sometimes we don't reach them because Salane is not doing nonsense that everybody should laugh or something like that. So
that is very true. Sometimes I think we have, as a country, we really have a long way to go.
Yeah, and we have to understand it. Social media, especially Facebook, people come there to relax sometimes, just to look, sometimes to dodge away from the real problems, just to change vibes, you can call it. That's why even for business people, what many people think, sometimes it can work, sometimes not, because people are not going purposely there to shop or to look to buy. You understand? So there are other platforms which are more for that, you know. Sometimes it can give a hint for somebody to see, okay, this is interesting. I look at it later, or I need to have it, you know. But directly to sell something there is, so that means it's another purpose. So we use it to relax.
Mm.
In fact, I'm one of the first people who were, I would not say, who started this Facebook nonsense. You know, those days we don't. I never thought that Facebook will even come to this. We used to use the platform to engage ourselves, like meeting your classmates, you know, like Gambians in Europe here. You want to reach the classmates who are in England. So, you know, that's where the communication was, you know, so that you can meet your old school friends, you know, to talk. So later, they push it to business and all. So, and we use it for politics and everything today. I mean, yeah, and that's why. So, when and there are certain things you cannot just throw it out. For example, legal things, just
Yeah.
like that in the social media is very dangerous.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think Sam can finish, and we have another lawyer here, Sergio Barrow, joining to also give his insight. He lives in West Coast, I believe, in San Francisco, and we have Njaka also. They can just give their insights. Yeah, quickly. All right. So if Sam, if you can just complete what you were saying, then we can allow Sergio to come in, and then Njaka.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we
you
are
know,
gonna
for me,
discuss.
the biggest thing for me is, like I said, I always like to set an example and set a good example and hold people accountable for their responsibilities. So I'd like to see that something happens in Gambia where we can really hold the law enforcement officers accountable for their actions. Because when a law enforcement officer is really illegally or unlawfully arresting someone or doing something wrong, what happened to that person? The government need to be able to hold that person accountable and set that example so the rest of them can follow the same thing. Because we've all seen from Jammeh's regime where a lot of things happened that went wrong, you know, a lot of illegal activities, and these people were not held accountable. And until this recent part after TRRC, when we heard certain things happening. And, you know, I hate to see that in our country. And in fact, that's why during that time, you know, when the first time Senator Sabali went to TRRC and testified there, you know, and I listened to him, I said, you know what, the government really should hold these people accountable. Anyone that was involved in all of these illegal activities, torturing and killing people, should really be, and especially working for the government at that time, I said they should be put on investigative suspension. At least get them off our books, get them off of their, from work while they investigate and until the court decides their case, but they should not be working for us, you know. So I like to see people held accountable. This is one of the ways that's going to stop the nonsense from happening in our country. Otherwise, it's going to continue on and on and on. You see riots, you see protesters being abused by law enforcement officers. That is really unlawful. I mean, they have no right to hit somebody like that. They, you know, you see the what is it called? The paramilitary goes out instead of protecting the crowd, they start and sending tear gas to these people and really suffocating people and doing all kinds of things, damage to people. So I like to see all of that stop. This is human right violations. People have the constitutional right and the fundamental right to demonstrate and be able to say their opinion peacefully without causing any problems. So my question again, my emphasis here is how can we hold these law enforcement authorities accountable for their actions?
Thank you. Thank you. So
let me just, before we get Sergio, can I just
Yes.
Mr. Caesar, the problem is in the law. Our laws really are very clear as to when you can use violence, when
Absolutely.
there is like when you want to effect an arrest, and of course, when there is a riot, you want to suppress the riot. The law is extremely clear, and
Yep.
of course, it's all about your reaction being proportionate, as in reasonable in all cases. So it's very, very similar to what you have in the UK. But I'm repeating, let me not repeat what I said earlier. You would see, based on what is happening, the problem in most cases isn't just about what the law says. So the law probably progressive enough, maybe needs tweaking here there, but very much like what you have in most countries. But the biggest problem we have in this country is the attitude. Dajikol, for Dajikol is falling by
Yep.
force Jiko Iweche. We cannot. I mean, our Homes Act was enacted in 2010. And now 2010, that's how many years ago? How are we even the one on domestic violence and a host of other issues? We're not talking about some of these laws just coming in now after 2016. So many of them have been going back 10, 15 years ago. What are we doing to make sure they're fully implemented? So we need to start looking each other in the eye. Sam, what you did is messed up. You need to fix it. Not like Sam is my friend. I'll look over what he did. I think that's our biggest problem in this country.
One of our problems.
Well,
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
it's our
Thank you,
biggest
Gabe, for
problem.
that.
The minute we start telling each other the truth, the minute we start being honest with each other, I think half of our problems will be solved. A lot of it is based on dishonesty.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gay. So
Yeah,
we're gonna
but
have
we have
Jaga
problem
come
with
in.
truth.
Jaga, come in quickly, and we can introduce Sajo, and then next he can just grab it from where. Can you hear us, Sajo? Sajo, can you hear us? Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah, I
Okay,
can hear
now.
you now.
Yeah.
I was
Okay,
trying to
good,
figure out
good,
my
good. All right, welcome, Sajo from San Francisco, about 3 hours away. Jaga, you can just come in, and then Sajo can come in quickly.
Yeah, hello guys. Maybe I might need a little bit of debrief and maybe a question, so maybe that will help me in the debate.
Did you twist your hair? It looks good.
No, I was just maybe I didn't have time for it, I don't have time to go to the salon.
At least I noticed something, right?
No. I was not feeling good, for nearly 2 weeks, so that's it,
Yeah.
That's why yeah.
That's
so
all,
maybe a little bit of debrief.
We cannot twist our hair like that.
No, it's just like,
Okay, at least I can do it.
buy some buffer. Buy some buffer. Wow, like maybe a little bit of debrief and maybe a question will help. But there are some notes of I took maybe when Sam and this guy who just talked, Mr. What's the name again? Gay Soul. Yeah. Like you talking, maybe as someone you can give me a debrief a little bit and maybe a question that might help to put me.
No, we were just talking, and you and Sajo can I'll just repeat this so you guys can get on.
Yeah.
So we were talking about like what people are proving they are guilty. I mean they're supposed to be innocent, proven guilty. But the way it appears in Gambian system, they are guilty before proven innocent. But Gay went on and said that was not the case. They are proven innocent before proven guilty, but there are certain laws that are punishable by death and life imprisonment. Those laws are not bailable. I mean, if you are charged for that, you are charged, by those things like rape, certain rape, you have to spend life in prison, and certain other cases like the NIA 9. So those ones is not bailable. So that's why those people never had the chance to go home. They been bailed. They were in prison until their court was
okay.
Those are the ones we are talking about. But I also task Gay So, and now Sadio is a lawyer, even though he's in US. He's also going to be tasked to this to challenge that law, because if let's say in Jaga you are innocent completely about the case, and you are not bailed.
Okay,
you are not being bailed, and your court has not been been carried out for 2 years. That is an injustice to you, because there is, it's not your fault that you are not been, you didn't face the judge to get to have judgment on your case. So why are they detaining you? Because the law said that you are charged with something that is not bailable. So Jay said that it's something that they knew about, they've been talking about. So their job is as lawyers now to see how they can challenge that, to say that it is unconstitutional or it's not humane. So those are things that we spoke about mostly. And then I think
I get a heads up. Okay, I'm just going to, I think that I'm going to repeat what I'm going to say. Gambia, we need attitudinal change, systematical change, institutional change, and everything has to change. Gambia, we have a problem. The problem is, first of all, that is, when people are given their verdict before the justice system gives its verdict, then there is a lack of, trust, or there is this kind of breach of trust between the people and the justice system. Because if there was 100% trust when it comes to our judicial system, I don't think that we would be encountering these problems. And the problem also, Gambia, as I said, we need to go back to, because of the laws are there, it has been written, but are we abiding by the laws? Are we doing what the laws is saying? Even the ones who are saying that they are the one in charge of the law, executing the law, punishing people who do something against the law, are they abiding by the law? Are they doing something that is right? You understand? So if I told that when we comes, I heard about talking about, how the police or the security personnel can harass people, you understand, do things and violating people's rights and there are stuff like that. But are they having proper training at training school? Are they being trained? Are they being taught exactly what it means to wear a uniform? Are they being given that kind of proper training? Are they being sensitized, not just to run and to grab a gun or to sing or to shout are they being given proper training? You understand? That is the thing. Because of today, when we go to today, because of if somebody who can't write or read, will that person be understand exactly what the law says or what his limits are? You understand? Someone who cannot read and write, and you give that person a uniform or power, what will he do? Just to beat or to do crazy things to feel that he is among what he is doing, or he is among a particular part of system or a particular part of body. You understand? Because other than that, there's nothing that they can do. They are the people that you find at the police station, just sitting at the verandas or just sleeping or doing whatever. They are not there, at charge of this. I'm telling you this because I have a first-hand experience of it. You understand? So there are lots of problems. I've always said that Gambia, for it to be how we are saying it, how we are talking about it, because I don't think that people, the ones who should even hear what we are saying, are they even listening or are they even hearing what we are saying? So that's the problem. And also we come to the people, are the people even taking care of exactly what is going on and what we are trying to say right now? You understand? So if I told that the system is not working fine, the judicial system will not work, it won't be independent, and there will be chaos, there will be problems, people will be given their verdict before the judicial system, people will having their says, you understand? Because of, it is true. I've seen people who have gotten away with murder. You understand? I've seen people who have been accused wrongfully and still now they are in detention without even having a proper trial. Why? Because of the overall problem is corruption. All comes down to corruption. Our minds are corrupt, our institutions are corrupt, and everything is corrupt. People believe in Gambia that to do something, you have to put something in my hand or in your hand for you to do something. So this is the kind of a general problem. Like if we have to look at like individually, or if you have to look at like how it will be, you will see that like this is a kind of a sad general problem that honestly the mentality has to change. So for me, this is my take on it for now.
Thank you. All right, so Sayo, you can come in. Yeah. So Mr. Barrow, Sayo is a lawyer here in the US. So I think you guys know him. He's been in the platform before. We can see you. And maybe
I think it's my network. I just turned my video off. But I think you have Jay today. If it's about Gambia, I could have enjoyed some sleep. He's more than sufficient to handle that. But I would try and put my video on a little bit, and then if I am breaking out or something happen, just let me know. I can turn it off.
Okay. Yeah. So Gay is here, but Gay, we need another eye, because already Gay is we hold him accountable for something that he has to go and talk with his folks. Proven, guilty. People are thinking that Gambia, you are proven guilty before proven innocent. So that concept, Gay told us that was not the case. The laws are the same. You are proven innocent, or until you're proven guilty. But
you are presumed innocent.
You are what?
Presumed innocent.
Presumed innocent.
Presumed innocent before.
Yeah.
Okay. But now the way the laws are designed, also, we have a problem with that. If for an example, I committed crime, people said I committed crime, which I never committed, and now they apply this on me. It's not fair. So how do we fix this? So he mentioned that he went to other countries, challenged it, and him and his guys have been talking about it. But what I see in Gambia, and even with the National Assembly, we have so many lawyers in the Gambia. But it looks like the lawyers are really not, if I would say they're not ready to rescue Gambia, because there's a lot of legal avenues. If people put their hands together, brains, and also even outside lawyers like you, Sajo, we can rescue our country from some of, the things that we are going through. I mean, becoming a lawyer and knowing the law is very powerful. Information is power. Some of us can have education in IT, in other areas, but you guys are more equipped to fight for the general populace and from the system that we found ourselves in, or we created for ourselves. So I think this is an opportunity now for Gambian lawyers to really, I know money is important, I know other things are important, but to rescue our country, you guys would have to lead us to that idea than the politicians. They would not. So I don't know what you say about this part of the issue that we are facing. And you and Jason can go into it. I mean, we can listen.
Thank you, Mr. Sound, and then thank you everyone for having me. I mean, I think, in my opinion, our hope dust when the draft constitution failed. A lot of these things have been captured there, and then I reviewed that document. I sent in my opinion. I have, no constitution is perfect. Even the US, at some point in time, people like me or that look like me are 3/4 of a human being. It's a work in progress. But Gambia's draft constitution was really, really progressive, and then it captured a lot of these issues. And then hadn't been it was passed, we would have started from there as the concrete, the ground floor. The foundation would have been perfect because it would force us to change a lot of, the code in the Criminal Procedure Act as we have currently. The second issue I think we are having, we have to understand Gambia came out of a dictatorial regime by every objective standard of people who, looked at jurisprudence. And then during the last 22 years, there's only one objective: to use the law to legitimize certain principles or certain activities or conducts of the previous government that, would give them some semblance of legitimacy in their ruling. And then in order to achieve that, they have to use the court. Gambia, even with all what we say, like the people he arrests, the people he convicts, he used it through the courts and through the laws. That's what he did. And then most of the codes were changed, after 97, there were a lot of amendments in our laws. And then that gave him so much power to do what he wants. In the real world, even in the US, from a legal standpoint, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. The only exception to that, like when we were young kids in the Gambia, they would say France loi. We all thought that in French, you are guilty until proven innocent. I don't even know whether that's true, but I know they have a statutory form of government. It's more statutory than, constitutional principle in the little I read about them in jurisprudence and comparative law. But Gambia, and then even in the US, from a legal spectrum, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. In the real world, you know, like you go to court, like trial lawyers, I can tell you, especially here where we have juries, you sit in that box and then the prosecution open their opening statement, put on their witness. Believe me, every juror is looking at you that you must have done something. That is the real world. You know, that's different from all these legal, you know, facade, and we are thinking that presumed innocent is all a good principle. But you get accused of rape, you get accused of murder, you sit in that defense witness chair. Everyone looks at you as someone who did something. That's just human nature, and that's the real world. What makes the system, you know, even though it's not perfect, what helps our system here in the West is the safeguards that comes with that real life expectation or assumptions. The judge would warn jurors, you know, I want you to limit your, you know, findings and your facts to purely the evidence here. You know, we want to make sure there's no jury nullification. I want to make sure I sequester you. You don't watch news. You know, it doesn't matter what beliefs you have, what you think. The only thing what matters is the evidence that is adduced here, and then the instruction I would give you. And then even if the jury sometimes, you know, they do something very abnormal, you know, we have judgment of which standing verdict. Some of those things are here. There are safeguards that kind of help us. And then granted, you have a republic that's over 300 years. They have gotten it wrong so many times and then they fixed it, right? Gambia, there's a jury system in the 97 constitution. It was yanked out. If you ask me, you know, previously, I thought that was a good idea. But then I was like, no, I think bench trial, the only reason even here lawyers would run away from bench trial, we all have this firm belief, lawyers are trained in the legal principle. And then they have seen a lot. By the time they sit on the bench, they have the ability, the education, the training, the temperament to separate their human emotion and then focus on the law and then the facts in front of them. And then if you have a bench trial, as the Gambia does, 9 out of 10 times we expect it to be right. They would get it right because they would look at the facts. And then unlike juries where they could have human emotions and then just let someone go because they just like them, the judges, their hands would be tied. And then I thought that should make Gambia a perfect system because we have a bench trial. The problem with that, it's where, you know, the originating document, the constitution that gave the judges powers to do some of the things, and then the Criminal Procedure Act that comes from there. The issue with bail, I think in as much as the Criminal Procedure Code says that anyone who is charged with that needs a punishment or capital offense is unbailable, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Now, if you looked at the Constitution itself, you know, the last time I perused through it, there is no specific provision that says that, you know, you are entitled to bail. Just like the US, when you looked at our, you know, Constitution 8th Amendment, no excessive bail or fine shall be imposed, no cruel and inhuman treatment, you know, and then went on, you know, the other provisions that come with 8th Amendment. It is from that jurisprudence, that provision in the 8th Amendment, where it actually gives everyone at least the right to apply for bail. Whether that bail will be given is a different circumstances. So, and then through 14th Amendment, as the vehicle, they bring those things to state court, you know, due process right under 14th Amendment. Now in the Gambia, you don't have that. So the facial validity of the Criminal Procedure Act at first blush, if you looked at it presumptively, it would look, okay, it doesn't offend any provision of the Constitution. So if our legislatures thinks that this is what their constituents want, to make sure anyone who is charged with capital offense or even an offense that attract, you know, life in sentence should not have bail. Maybe that's what Gambians want. That's fine, you know. But some of the provisions in the Constitution, it still become questionable. You know, that presumption of innocence. How do you, you know, reconcile that with this statute that says that you can't even apply for it? You don't even have the right to apply. And then other protections in section 19 that says that, you know, look, you have a right to speedy trial and all that stuff. There's a lot of things that have not been fed out. So for me, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, in Gambia, the way things work, and then my experience is most trials takes about 3 to 5 years in Gambia. if you're lucky, and then know someone else. And then during this whole time, you could sit in detention. And then the procedure, the only thing, my beef with Gambia is the criminal procedure code. I mean, the idea that, you know, we adapted from the British, and then it doesn't mean it's alien. You know, it's very much common law. We take it from England, the way their process work, and then the initial appearance where you have, you know, plea, and then initial pre-trial appearance, you plead not guilty, and then trial automatically begins from there. And then during trial, if some other issues comes up, you do voir dire, and then, you know, mini trial there. I don't like that system. And then the US used to have it until we change our system, because it kind of change people who have been accused of a crime, their fundamental protection in criminal law. Because unlike certain few moves which you can challenge when you are initially charged, like jurisdictional issues, your hands are pretty much tied. Even if complaints are facially deficient, you can move to dismiss, but they could, you know, move to cure those amendments. So basically, you just have to sit and wait until, you know, prosecution finish their case, no matter how weak the case is, before you could make your first move of no case submission. I think that's an, you know, anomaly in the Gambian system. Gambia, we have a informational system. We don't have a grand jury system, just like the US, like the federal government. And then in the US, there are some states that opt out of the federal grand jury system and then maintain informational system, just like the common law system in UK. What that means is, if anyone that gets charged with a misdemeanor, you know, there's probable cause, you go straight. There's no preliminary hearing, but you get charged with a crime. That's a felony. You have a right to prelim unless you waive it. What that prelim is, it gives defense an opportunity to challenge the underlying PC probable cause for that charges before it gets bound over for felony trial. So if there is BS in the initial charges, you could just move to quash that, and then the case just die there. At least no one would sit in pretrial detention before trial. So we don't have, you know, a very robust criminal procedure system. If we are not having a grand jury system, and then we have informational system where you get charged with a felony, there should be a bill of indictment. And then that bill of indictment must be supported by probable cause. And then every accused should have an opportunity to challenge the sufficiency of that PC in front of a magistrate. Maybe it happens there. It doesn't. But the way I looked at it, you know, Jay would be in a better position to correct me if I'm wrong, or if some of the lawyers make those moves. My thinking is, even if we don't have that, because inherently we are a common law jurisdiction, and then Supreme Court has affirmed that in Yankuba, the ex-junta's case,
yeah,
lawyers, if there's an information system, they can still challenge, you know, those indictment. If it lacks probable cause, they can move to dismiss. You don't have to wait until a no case submission. But the other issue with this, when it comes to bail, Section 19 is there, and then I review these things, and I have my problem with it. And then the way the language is phrased, because I think 19.5 or 19D, I'm not sure exactly, but one of the provisions stated that if someone is accused of a crime and then they've not been tried, you know, in the past, and the past participant tried within a reasonable time. So in my view, the operative adjective there, the emphasis on not tried, the language is not charged. You know, you could be charged and sitting in mile 2. If you've not been tried within a reasonable time, the Constitution make, you know, and then emphasis added that you must be released either unconditionally or with condition to secure your appearance in future hearing. So the question becomes, in Gambian system, since we don't have like in the US, where once you charge, we go to pre-trial hearing, and then we have a scheduling order. Like, okay, any motion in limine must be filed before this cut-off date. Any evidence, like there is no surprise, like Gambia, how people do trial by ambush. Here, I'm going to trial. I know exactly every evidence that's coming in, what's not coming in. We cover all those things in pre-trial, right? And then you have a trial schedule that says trial starts Monday and it's only for 3 days, or maybe trial would be 1 week. That way, no time is wasted. We all know when trial is coming in and when any evidence must be filed, those deadlines. Gambia doesn't have that, except, you know, once you file, I think the only reading I have on the criminal procedure code, once states bring those charges, they will give discovery, you know, whatever they have, or the evidence list to the criminal defense attorney. The problem there is, one state called their first witness after you take a plea, not guilty, and then state called their first witness. Under the eyes of Section 19 of the Constitution, Does that mean trial commence and then it's no longer unreasonable? If the court, let's say you come today and then one witness testify, the court set it to 3 months because of their calendaring and says next sitting is, September 10, because that's when they have. So can you invoke that provision and says that, hey, wait a minute, buddy, I've not been tried within a reasonable time. I've been doing, they've been dixing me around for the last 3 years. Yes, they've been bringing me to court. Yes, under Gambian and common law jurisprudence, trial has commenced, witnesses are testifying, but is the delay reasonable or unreasonable? That's a question Supreme Court has to decide. And then how does reconcile that with the right to speedy trial in the Constitution? Like in the US, you get charged with a misdemeanor, you must have a trial date within 6 months or you move to dismiss with prejudice, period. Felony, is it true that people sit in remand like in Rikers? I never practiced in New York, but when I was an attorney, I have cases where they have immigration consequences. Clients sitting in Rikers 1 year, 6 months on felony charges before the trial date. It happened here. We've seen it, especially if you don't have a private attorney or you have a public defender. By the time you are out, it's usually time served, or you still get credited for those things, right? But at least the trial date. Or maybe you have a PD, a public defender, and then they are overbooked. So the trial calendar, it might take at least a year out. We know that you get charged with a felony, even you get remanded, it takes at least a year out before you have trial date. So I think to manage the expectation in Gambia, the way I see it, it is the Constitution that must lay the foundation that everyone is entitled to bail. And then the draft Constitution that Jay and others worked on, they saw this, some kind of, I think they have a foresight to know that, hey, there is a lacuna right now with our criminal code, and then what the modern practice is. So we want to make sure everyone has right to bail. And then these are some of the factors the court would consider. For instance, the only two principles in any bail or bond hearing, whether it's immigration or other hearing, is danger to public safety, and then flight risks, whether they would secure their appearance back in court, even from common law. That's the two principles. So what, like states like Wisconsin, where I am barred in, for people who have been convicted of serious felonies before, there is a presumption against bail unless you could prove by client convincing evidence that you are not a danger to the public. And then even in those circumstances, if you meet your burden, the conditions that would come with bail are very expensive, are very high. At least it strikes a balance to keep that constitutionality. But for someone like me or you who has no prior criminal history, not even as much as a parking ticket, you get crime, charged with murder in Gambia, or even a very serious way, unless there is physical evidence. And I mean, I don't, evidence Gambia like, oh, there's no credible physical evidence, in the sense that unless there are DNA tests, serious physical evidence that would mitigate that there is a strong presumption of guilt, you are getting ROR, or even with a signature born out of that court the first time you appear in there. And I've seen that even cases I handle here, they will release you on your own recognizance or give you a $10,000 signature bond bail, and then you sign that, you come, and if you violate the condition, you pay that. But if there are strong physical evidence tying you to the commission of that crime at the outset, you could bet that they would put monetary condition. They could give 50,000, 100,000, and then that would be a good strike. And that's what I expect the Gambia to do. And then that's what I expect the National Assembly to do in the near future, to at least, reconcile some of these anomalies. But until then, everyone is in the same boat. That's how I see it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh man, that's a lot. A lot of information. We have experts here, and
yeah, it's always good, man, to hear from experts.
Yeah, I think Geso can come and just respond to Sajo's thought, and then we can wrap it up. This is so much information, I'm telling you. Yeah, we cannot hear you. You are muted. You are muted.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Sajo, I hope you're okay. I said one thing, and that hasn't changed. Other than the law we referred to, the 2002 law saying if you charge with particular offenses, you're not entitled to bail. Well, I don't see anything that Mr. Barrow said that is not addressed by our laws. If you look at our constitution, in fact, the fundamental human rights, the rights start from Section 18, the right to life, and they end up in Section 33, non-discrimination. The longest provision is on the right to fair trial. That's Section 4. It's longer than all the other sections you have on rights. And Section 24 specifically, like I said earlier, talks about presumption of innocence. And it also says very specifically that shall, when we say that in English, in Maninka they said, you shall be afforded a fair trial within a reasonable time. I don't think America has a law that is better than that. Your trial has to be fair and it has to be within a reasonable time. We all know what is reasonable depends on the circumstances of the case. So if you file a case against Mr. Sawane, the case drags on for 10 years on a simple matter, that's not reasonable. So it's your responsibility as Mr. Sawane to make sure you take up this matter in court, particularly if you feel your case has been adjourned over and over again. Our judiciary isn't above the law. What we have here is rule of law. What is supreme in the Gambia is the Constitution. The president is not above the Constitution. Parliament is not above the Constitution. Judges are not above the Constitution, including the Chief Justice. So at the end of the day, if a case drags on forever, a case that ordinarily can be concluded in a year drags on forever, clearly that would have been a violation of Article 24, which says you have to be tried within a reasonable time. But what do we do? So, like I said, the problem is in the law. Of course, there are a lot of things we need to tweak, but a lot of the frustrations we're complaining about, we have laws that might not be perfect, but they might be somehow adequate to address them. The thing about being tried by jury, we had that in the Gambia. So you and I wouldn't remember, because even though we're old, we're at the same time very young. They had this in the Gambia until the 80s. In the 80s, they decided to change that. And in fact, if you look at the same provision I referred to, it says if you're accused of a crime, you have a right to be tried by a jury. What they did on the Gambia was to find a nice way of amending that. But we know how small Gambia is. Why, in fact, there is no country in English-speaking West Africa. I don't even know when you go to Kenya, when you go to Tanzania, you come to West Africa, you go to Liberia, you go to Nigeria, you go to Sierra Leone. Any of those countries where you have trial by jury, like you have in the US. In the Gambia, like I said, we used to have it until the 80s. What is the issue? Can you imagine how polarized the Gambia is? Mr. Sow is accused of breaking into his neighbor's house. And it is publicly known Mr. Sow, identifies with a particular political party. How sure are we that the jury they're going to constitute wouldn't be made up of members who belong to a
That's
party
another
different from
problem
Mr.
we
Sow?
have. Yeah, it's
That's
another
another problem.
problem.
And we know the Gambia is small. If I don't know you, I know someone who knows you. So our leaders looked at it. Like I said, even in Nigeria, where they have more than 200 million people, they did away with trial by jury. I wouldn't be calling for trial by jury. Of course, whether if you charge with any offense, you should be released on bail, or you must be denied bail. That is something we need to look into, because I think cases should be treated on an individual basis. You cannot just come up with a blanket law saying for this offense, no bail at all, irrespective of what your circumstances are. I think that is absolutely wrong. But I'm not a big fan of copy-paste, US. There are a lot of problems with the US justice system, some of them extremely horrible. I'm not saying the US justice system is the best in the world. And if I have to copy from the US, it definitely would have to be one thing other than the trial by jury, bearing in mind how tribal our society is, how polarized we are. So because it works wonders in the UK, in the US, doesn't mean that will work wonders for us. I'm a very big fan of coming up with a system that is indigenous. But I'm not saying indigenous because we want to be different. indigenous because that is what we think would work for our people. You know what I mean? But about being tried within a reasonable time, our law is clear. But whether somebody should be denied bail because he or she is charged with a particular offense, our law says for some offenses, no bail. I think that is absolutely wrong. It's something we need to challenge. It's something we need to look into. Why do you have judges? You need to start trusting our judicial officers so that at the end of the day, when somebody is taken to court, it will be about whether the guy is guilty or not guilty before he even opens his mouth. When we're talking about bail, it will be about, will Mr. Nger come to court to stand trial? If we want him to come to court next week, would he be there? Yes, he talked about flight risk. But other things our courts look into.
Other
They look
excuses.
into your criminal record. They also look into whether you will tamper with investigations. If you are so rich, you're accused of bribery, and we know if you release you on bail, you would bribe all other witnesses. The courts can rely on that to deny you bail. In the past, prosecutors would used to come to court and say, "Oh, no bail. That's the order I got from above." I'm happy the Gambia has moved beyond that. Like now, prosecutors give you reasons. But at the end of the day, like I said, to give bail, not to give bail, we should continue to give that power to our courts to look into the merits of your case, to then decide on whether you should have bail or not bail. But that also would mean our courts doing their best to make sure we continue to have confidence in them.
Right.
The minute we begin to lose confidence in our judiciary, then we're doomed at the end of the day. So I'm not blaming us for losing confidence. At the end of the day, I'm also saying our judiciary should be on their toes to make sure they don't get into anything sinister, they don't get into anything questionable that will begin to put doubt as to their impartiality or otherwise. So, in a sense, like I said, a lot of these things, yes, taken care of by one law or the other. But you know, in the US, when these things happen, I'm sure someone like Saja would be happy to go to court to challenge it. Do we do that in our country? We don't. We have been here having this discussion. I can tell you that because I know. If you know this lawyer called Sagar Jahate, I have had this discussion with Sagar going back to the Jammeh days. What do we do to make sure this law is set aside? It is a bad law. Just because somebody is charged with an offense punishable with death, life imprisonment, does not mean we have to take away their right to bail at the end of the day. In deserving cases, what if the guy is 90 on life support? Are you going to insist on the guy being in mild two?
Definitely.
That's the problem.
But in America, yes.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, but the difference is in America they go to court.
I know. I
They
mean,
take Biden to court. They just take the Justice Department to court, which is something we have to instill in our young lawyers. As in, at the end of the day, your practice cannot all be about the fees you get pro bono. Taking up some of these cases free, that is a culture we have not yet developed, and we owe it to our people to start doing that. So we will need Mr. Saja to come back, Mr. Barrow to come back, for me to maybe step aside so that we can work towards maybe having this instilled in our people. But like I said, usually it's really not, other than what I said about bail, that crazy law. In all the other cases, it's not necessarily about the law, but the way that law is applied or interpreted. In most cases, wrong.
But I have a question here. What if, Mr. Sow, that you try to just organize a group of lawyers with your friend there to talk to this and let them all participate, and then you write something and say that's how we see it and it should be changed? Is that possible?
That's not how it works. The thing is, if we can write that, get it to the National Assembly for Parliament. Like in the US, they engage their parliamentarians. You go to your representative, you go to your senator, even in the UK to other places, you engage them, you push them to change the law. In the Gambia, we don't do that. I cannot remember anybody saying, I pushed my National Assembly member on this issue, and that led the National Assembly member to, put in a private member bill, and that led to the adoption or repeal of that law. We don't have that culture. And at the end of the day, as lawyers, like writing on a piece of paper is as good as me coming on this platform. For us to see change, we need to take the matter off before the
Actually,
courts.
yeah,
That
that's
would mean
why I
we need
say,
to have,
that's why I
the legal
say,
challenge.
yeah, that's
Yes.
why I say that, because I mean, as you said, it's a long time here. So I think was going to be very helpful when many lawyers see it as you see it and try to join you, and then maybe then from there you can even see doors where you can use, because you know, one person, two people, they'll hardly see you in the Gambia, you know. So I'm just wondering that only you two people, you know, are seeing these things. Maybe other
But
lawyers,
then,
I'm not criticizing them, but maybe they just take it as it is. And when they know that this law can be changed, then I think it's always better to do something. Oh,
our
am I
problem is
right?
not just about bail. Our problem is with the, somebody said something about attitudinal, whatever, change.
Yeah,
Why
change.
should a case drag on for 10 years? Why should any case drag on for 10 years or more? Is it about the magistrates or the judge's convenience? Or is it about justice? Why should any case was drag on like that long?
Right.
Come to
Questionable.
our courts. We have some of our cases dragging on for a very, very long time. So we need proper case management. Of course, you speak to the judiciary, they also have their challenges. So it is a problem. We need to really work towards making sure these things are sorted out. No, I don't think it is fair for a criminal case to drag on for like 2-3 years unending. No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
don't you think we need qualified people who are working between the police and the judiciary so that things
To
can
be
be
a
quick?
judge, you have to be qualified.
I
You have to
mean,
be a
but
lawyer for
no,
a few
yeah,
years.
yeah, I know, but qualified people, you know what I mean? Who are taking these cases to the judiciary, qualified enough to know that this is a waste of time or this person can be bailed also. You know what I mean? Just as a help. Because what I know or I think our police, they learn how to arrest you. You understand? But
Yeah.
maybe sometimes they don't know through the judicial rights who is to be arrested or not, or who is to be, because they should be almost qualified like a lawyer to know this is going to waste government's time, this is going to waste our money, the tax money. Is it worth it? Or things like that. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
to make the
Yeah.
preparation for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. We can give the final round. Jay, you can say your final words, and then you can go ahead. You know, you spend almost like 2 hours. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
My final word. You said when you invited me, you said something about presumption of innocence. I just want to conclude by saying that is adequately covered by our law. It's enshrined in our constitution and is also included in all treaties we have ratified. On bail, there are question marks as to whether the law we have saying you cannot have bail in XYZ, like offenses punishable with death, life imprisonment, whether that law saying you cannot have bail is right or wrong. My view is I don't think it's fair to have a general law saying you cannot have bail in XYZ cases. And because of how I feel about that law saying no bail not available in specific instances, there is a need for us to at least file an action challenging the validity of that law, bearing in mind there is no part of Section 19 or even Section 24 that says bail is even available in certain circumstances. So presumption of innocence, coded clear, everybody innocent, guilty. Bail saying not available in XYZ cases, questionable. How do we sort it out? Program like this one and most likely a legal challenge.
Okay. Thank you so much for Jay. So you can go ahead now and relax. I know you have cold. So
No, thank you very much for your time, Mr.
Thank
Saul.
you. Yeah, thank you all
Thank you
for
very
having
much,
me.
Sajo, for your
yeah.
time and all.
Thank you.
They,
Yeah, you guys can go ahead and if you want any final words, Sam.
Yes,
And they.
let me get a final note before I go. Yes, Mr. So, thank you Thank you so very much for joining us today. It was a very fruitful discussion. So to wrap up with, to make it short, that is a final note to our judicial system, because they should make sure and try by all means to restore the confidence and trust of the Gambian people. Because I believe there can never be a judicial system without the trust of the people. So therefore, they have a great role to play in making sure that, they are accountable to their legal and ethical standards and making sure that the trust and hope of Gambian people is, restored. And coming down to the citizens, I think we have to enlighten our knowledge with regards to the laws of our country. Because I believe in the Gambia, what the belief that we have is, like, every person who is arrested by security officers is a criminal, which is a very, very wrong perception, because not everyone who is arrested is a criminal. Remember, innocent until proven guilty. So that is my final note, and I hope you all take notes from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you. Yeah, well said. Thank you. Thank you, Nday. Thank you, Mr.
Final word.
And no, for me, I just want to thank everyone for their time. It's been a great session today. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Saul. Thank you, Sajo. Thank you all. Definitely.
Thank you all.
Appreciate you all. Alice.
Alice, anything final?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I thank all of them for their time, and I hope that our audience learn also as we, because it's not our field. We cannot be experts in all, but that is the best. That we have experts. They hear from the what they used to say, from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
You. Yeah, thank you, Sajo. Any final words, Sajo, before we close?
Thank you. Sorry, I was having breakfast too. But thank you, guys. And then I think this is productive. Conversations like this is good for citizens. Just a sandwich.
For me, it's Yoganala.
I see. Time difference. But this is really fruitful. And then I think Gambia, we need more civic education, right? And that's my belief. And then, hey, Justice Sound says this thing, the antidote to free speech is more speech. The more garbage we have there, eventually we'll make some sense out of it. That's what I believe in. And then I am the Brennan type jurist. And I believe even the accused should be accorded the greatest of right. That's just what I believe in, and then I also have this firm belief, if institutions, the police always follow the law, do it right, believe me, rarely would you see an accused who actually commit a crime go free. The system is not perfect. There would be loophole, but the problem is we are not trusting the system. Even here in the US, most people get away because of technicality. If police usually butcher, they fail to follow their own process or procedure set aside, right? And then Gambia too, I think the other thing, I know this is a little bit, I'm coming after us as a professor of legal education in Gambia too. If, it should be mandatory. I have to complete 30 credit hours for Wisconsin, like every 2 years. And then out of that, 6 of them has to be mandatory ethics and then in person, 6 credit hours in order to get recertification. Just because, it helps, legal innovation and then understand and then put you on your roller. Those things are important. I think Gambia has to be there, even with the judiciary too, right? And then we have a system where I think is somewhat unique. Bench trial. I love it because with that, at least you could almost be a sword. If someone commits a crime and then the evidence are there, judges would have the temerity to say, look, dude, I'm not letting you go free, unlike juries where we could do jury nullification. I think that's a very good system. We just need to put more emphasis on it. And then we have a codified system of constitution. We pretty much, like South Africa started this trend, right? And then everybody follows it. And it's a very good system. Like we want to spell everything out. But I think the problem I'm seeing lately in Gambia, this Latin phrase, exclusio, I forget it, where the exclusion of one is not the inclusion of other. But Gambia, what I'm seeing from some of the judgment, because of this codified system, and then we seems to have everything spelled out. If something is not, expressively addressed, most of the juries would think that No, it doesn't work that way, right? So I see that I start thinking, okay, do you think about the application of the law? How do you reconcile with order? Because you don't see it written there. Like most of our fundamental right here, like if you're doing strict scrutiny in the US, the fundamental right, they are not explicitly written. Well, we have our problem too, like Jay said. Our recent Supreme Court says that the right to abortion is not grounded in American jurisprudence. It's not something, and then they yank it out because it's not part of the fundamental right. It's not spelled out. So sometimes you would see judges do crazy things. That's true. Even here, it's not perfect, right? But my problem is, in as much as we have a codified system of constitution, our procedures should be even more robust to make sure it at least address these things, or at least have judicial training to help these people out. And then the citizens too need civic education to understand that, look, these are the rules. And Gambia by default, 90% Muslim. Sometimes we kind of take this spectrum of Islam to review the law, and then I seen that, but like, if you don't do this, why would, like we think that we are thinking as Muslim, and then the same thing applies there. And I think there should be a lot of work to educate the population that, look, we are Muslim, you can legislate yourself as a Muslim, or if you're a Christian, legislate yourself as a Christian. But when we are in the court of law, it's completely different. You might know certain facts, you might know certain things, but because somebody don't follow certain things, those things may not come out. That's what we choose to do. At least it would at least manage expectation. And then finally, the younger one, I think the trainings, I think Gambia is tough. Look, I'm not going to fault them for that, because I'm here, I work here, and then money is important. And then some of the younger generation that I interact with, they would tell you, well, I cannot do certain pro bono. I'm here asked to do 50 hours pro bono, but you tell them in Gambia, they have to put food on the table. We have to be realistic, right? Things are difficult. But the idea of advocacy makes it so challenging the law. Lawyers are like the first line defenders of liberty. So I think that training, that mentorship should be there. When I first started out in 2013, 14, it takes a lot if you don't have mentorship to file certain challenges, thinking that, do I ruffle the feather of judges? Like, can I file habeas petition if I think my judge is wrong? Can I file mandamus to compel them to do certain things? But with mentorship, they tell you the right cases you pick. By the time 2016, at least I was comfortable. I have that mentorship, and then they train me to challenge laws if I think the interpretation. And then even in my immigration practice, in 2017, 18, when that mass deportation started here, the number of habeas petitions I file across the US just to have Gambians released. If I don't have that training and that mentorship at the time, I would be afraid to go to federal government and then challenge the government with everything they got. They have everything, and then they have more resources than me. But I came to a point, I felt like I was so armed too with the Constitution, to the point that I felt like I'm not afraid. Until when I started on the other side, I see the kind of resources they have. So I think that mentorship should be there to the younger ones, challenging them to think outside the box, to see the law. It doesn't mean you've been disrespectful to the bench, but it's just, if you believe in something, try to follow it, let them have those training, that mentorship, rather than what I see, like everyone is an individual farm. There's no coordination, that mentorship is not there. And then you taught them at the university, they come out, and then most of them don't have the needed mentorship they need, because everyone just go because employment. I get it. There's a lot to fix there, but at least we have to come together too, and then have those mentorship, like the programs we have here. Attorneys under 5 years, you are, designated a specific mentor. When I get out of the bar, I sign up for that, and then they talk to you, tell you about issues. It kind of help you out, and then you are learning at the same time. It become a mutually exclusive benefit, and then it forces them to write too, because once you start doing that, this whole idea of wasting time in court. And then one of the things we used to have it here during the 1861, the Lincoln days, where lawyers go to court, do oral argument for 8-10 hours. I sing my own gospel, someone sings. But America now, everything is almost briefing system. You maybe less than 2% of the cases you get oral argument in BIA. I never argued anything in front of BIA, Board of Immigration Appeal. Most of my appeal, I would request oral argument, I brief it, and then by briefing, they would resolve the issue on brief, because they don't even have time to give you. It's only unique cases or cases of first impression where rarely they would call for oral argument. They would dispose of it on briefs. And then we could encourage that too in Gambia for judges. Someone has an issue, put a schedule in order, put a deadline, let them brief the issues, review it, and then make your ruling. it would make things move faster rather than they
Right.
come to court and then argue 3 hours that day you adjourn it and then you cannot even make a ruling when you could act proactively. And then that's what we do now. So I think holistically, there's a lot that need to be done. That's how I always believed in. And then, but I think we have the talent, we have the resources in Gambia. And then one thing I appreciate Gambia about is the level of raw intelligence in that country. We are just not harnessing it, just like our oil. We have all these raw materials, but we can
I
refine
used
it.
to call it
That's how I see it over there.
the human resources we
yeah,
have.
but Gambia doesn't have shortage of raw talent. That one I can promise you that. Very intelligent, most of them, they're extremely intelligent. We just need to harness it and then just refine it. That's what I believe in.
Thank
but,
you. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you,
Definitely.
everyone.
Yeah, I think this was very helpful. So definitely we will have more things to talk about when it comes to legal. You guys really delivered. This is what we need. So I hope, people who are watching will benefit from this and share. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio.
I'm loaded. I'm loaded today. I'm loaded today legally.
Yeah, a lot of good information.
Right. Tomorrow you'll be a judge.
Bye, guys.
By
Bye.
the time
Okay. Thank you for your
See
time.
you all later. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sam and
All right, sir.
Sajo Gay.